In this lesson, we'll take a quick look at what body paint is. So body paint is a 3D painting application, so we're able to paint directly on our 3D models. It's a very popular application. You can get it as part of Cinema 4D. You can also get it separately as a separate application. And so let's just take a look at what this looks like and how you actually get to body paint. So let's start with just a primitive, and we'll just start with a sphere. We'll go ahead and make that sphere editable. And let's say now we want to start to paint on this. Well, we're painting texture maps, so we need UV maps and everything and texture map set up to go with it. So we can do this very easily. We'll choose our layout, and I'm going to go to the Body Paint 3D Paint layout. And this is a user layout that we've created for the size of our recording, but you can also, you will have the ability to go in and just choose Body Paint 3D Paint. And so go ahead and load that up. Now you can see that we have our editor window here. We have a number of icons on the left-hand side that are related to our painting. You'll see some of those look familiar. We also have a number of icons up at the top, and then we have the material over here, and then we have our colors and layers down here. So to actually set this up for painting, we're going to use the Paint Setup Wizard, which is this little icon right here with the paintbrush and the 3 stars. So go ahead and activate that. We want to just choose the sphere as our object. I'll go ahead and say next. Yes, we want to recalculate the UVs. If you want to do your UVs manually, you don't have to do this procedure. You can go ahead and set those up on your own. Otherwise, we can go ahead and, yes, I want to set up the UVs. We can now choose to create different material or different texture channels here. So we can choose to paint a color texture. We can paint diffusion, luminance texture to drive the transparency, the bump, etc. So we can have all of these different kinds of layers here. We can also choose the size of the texture that we're going to create. So we're going to create a color map that is 1024 by 1024, and as soon as we're done, we'll say finish, and it's going to set that up for us and take us into 3D painting mode. So we're going to choose to use one of these brushes over here. We can go ahead and fill. If we want to fill this with a particular color, we can choose the color here or over here. If we want to make this blue, let's say, we'd choose the blue color, and you can see that color reflected here. We can go ahead and use our paint bucket to fill that entirely with blue. Okay, now we can choose another color, go to our paintbrush, and here you can see up here on our brush attributes, we can change the look of our brush, change the hardness, can change the size of the brush here. So a lot of different options, and now you can see that we can paint directly on our 3D model. Okay, so we can come in here, we can rotate around. All right, come in here. And so really starting to get in here and painting interactively on our 3D shape. Now if we go up here, we can see that we have 2 tabs, View and Texture. If we go into Texture, we can see that this is actually the flat representation of our object. We can also come in here and show UV Mesh, and we can see what those UVs look like and how they've been laid out. So if you really want to come in here and paint, you can also paint on our texture view if you don't want to paint on the actual view in here. And so it's really easy to come in here and modify things. We can get our eyedropper and select that particular color, come back in here and paint over it. Okay. And you can see right now we are painting the color over here in the channels. Okay. And then if we go into some of these other options, you can see we can get swatches. We can look at the materials that we've got here. You can see that we are painting the color on this particular material. Okay, and then we have on the dragon that we have hidden here, we've got a number of different color textures associated with that as well. Okay, you can go back and look at the layers that you've got, so you can add additional layers as well. Okay, if you want to blend this, so you don't want to, you want to create, green, but you want the blending to be maybe 50%. You can see how that is blending and it's more transparent versus something that is more opaque. So you can change the blending as well. Okay. You can also go into layers and we can start to add new layers. So if I add a new layer on top of here and we want to change our color a little bit, let's go kind of over here. When we're painting on our new layer, I can go ahead and paint on that particular layer, and then we can turn that layer off if we want to turn it off. And so you can see how that's actually layered over the top of the existing painting that we've done. We also have the ability to change the blend modes that we're using with this particular layer. So you've got a lot of the functionality that you have with something like Photoshop here in a application that lets you paint directly on your 3D models. So there's a lot involved in working with body paint, and if you want to go through that process, you can go through the getting started with body paint, and that will actually take you through that. If we take a look and go back to our standard view, and let's go ahead and turn off our sphere, and we'll turn on our dragon here. So looking at this dragon, he was actually painted in body paint. So if we take him into body paint here, you can kind of see, this is the UVs here, but we'll go into our 3D paint. We can come in and start to see some of the layers that are involved in creating this model. So you can see that we've got the color for the belly here. If we come in looking at the texture, you can see how all of that works together based on these UVs to get the final look that we have here on this simple dragon. Okay, and so this just kind of takes it a little bit further out. You can see here on the materials where we've got the color, the luminance, and the bump. So we actually have a couple of textures here painted for the luminance and bump, and then mostly they're painted for the color. Okay, and so that's just another example. You can paint, get your scales, and you've got the bump here that you're able to create. And so you can get as complex as you want with body paint. It's used commonly on feature films, and so you can really get high resolution textures in here and really get a lot of detail that you can export. And these are actual texture maps. It's not poly paint or anything like that. These are your actual texture maps that you set up and can save out. Okay, so that's just a really quick look at what body paint is. Again, if you want to actually learn how to use body paint, I definitely recommend you check out the Getting Started with Body Paint. So the next thing that we want to talk about is a little bit about rendering our scenes. So how do we get those nice looking images that we may want to create here in Cinema 4D? So we'll take a look at some of the rendering options in the next lesson.